Well, good afternoon. This is Sordia White, the amazing Amazon, and thank you for joining us again for another episode of Society's Survivors. Society Survivor is a branch of my Generational Survivors global platform, which was designed to empower our communities on a local and global scale by raising awareness of societal topics that are not often viewed as a priority. If you have not already viewed the past few episodes, please make sure that you do by visiting our Facebook page, Generational Survivors, for the links that you can catch up on. Joining me today is none other than my beautiful co-host and show producer, Alicia Brown, the Joy Guru. How are you doing, Alicia?
I am doing well. It's supposed to be a nice, hot day, sunny day, great weather here in Virginia.
That's right. Yeah.
And since we are on a stay-at-home order, I just thought I would dress for the occasion, although I cannot go outside to enjoy.
You're Jamaica ready.
I'm Jamaica ready. Because like in another week, I was supposed to be out of the country. But you know what? It's all right.
It's okay.
We'll have our time again. We are alive today and well, so we give God thanks for that. And of course, we will still continue with our stories on first responders, but
yes,
actually one of the quotes from our first responders last episode that we had to pause and explore this issue further. So his statement is that today's question for the show: is coronavirus the next World War II? What you need to know. I shared the following statement during our last episode by the person who has now been identified as Zahid Saeed, who currently practices pulmonary and critical care medicine in New York and was a pulmonary and critical care fellow at the University of Arizona in Phoenix. I'm just going to share a small snippet. He said, worst case scenario for the U.S. puts us at 2.2 million deaths based off current scientific models, notwithstanding those who will indirectly die as hospitals are unable to care for the usual slew of chronic medical conditions. By the end of June, for every available critical care bed, there will be roughly 15 COVID-19 patients in need of one. Make no mistake, this is the greatest challenge the world has seen since World War II. The worst is yet to come. So with that being said, we thought it was imperative to make comparison for vital lessons that we can learn and apply for our own survival and well-being. Now we know that economic recessions are cyclical. Most recent occurred in 2008. We remember that. According to Bloomberg's opinion, which we will share these links on Generational Survivors and Facebook pages and website, so you'll have them to review yourself. There was an article written that was titled "How the COVID-19 Recession is World War II." And in that article, it stated that the COVID-19 collapse of the worldwide economy is prompting comparisons with earlier major economic adjustments. And while there's a lot of discussion about the Great Recession of 2008, the current crisis has more in common with World War II. And why is one of the points they made was that for the U.S. in World War II, an enemy attack and a significant portion of the economy was redirected to a wartime effort. With COVID-19, a virus has attacked and a significant portion of the economy has been redirected to enforce leisure at home. Time at home is better than having to fight on Pacific Islands, but in some ways, the economic effects are similar. Case in point two, during World War II, the U.S. economy produced many more tanks, guns, and medical supplies, and GDP growth measured as robust, especially compared to the bad years of the preceding Great Depression. Yet, those good GDP numbers are misleading. Data on personal consumption show that there were fewer goods and services to go around, and most people on the home front felt a distant sense of privatization. Many Americans feel the same right now. Now, Bloomberg's opinion did offer one piece of good news. that America is likely to see a boom once the uncertainty surrounding COVID-19 is gone. And this will resemble the boom that followed World War II. Americans will have spent months postponing their larger consumer purchases. When the time comes, the pent-up demand will be unleashed, and producers of consumer durables will have inventory to satisfy it. But on the downside, much of the lost consumption will not be recovered, most of all in the service sector. So foregone restaurants, meals, and music concerts cannot be made up. This will be a very painful recession for face-to-face services, which cannot be diverted to wartime production. So as with World War II, one of the biggest dangers today is the risk of unpleasant and unexpected surprises. And those risks include a Eurozone financial crisis and breakup, implosion in troubled states such as Iran, a Saudi balance of payments crisis, or a conflict with China due to rising tensions. And it's difficult to estimate the likelihood of those risks according to the article, but they may help explain why the stock market has fallen so much, far more than might be justified by a year or two of bad earnings. Now, the article also noted that one significant difference between World War II and COVID-19 crisis is that people knew the war was going to last a long time.
Absolutely.
Wow. And, there was a little hesitation in committing significant economic resources to the effort because of that. But rather than trying to prop up troubled sectors, the U.S. encouraged factories to make tanks instead of automobiles. Today, it's difficult for us to estimate when matters will return to normal. Is it a good policy to prop up small restaurants to enable their full return in a few months? Or will the second and third waves of the virus render rapid recovery impossible? In that case, it might be better for many of the restaurant workers, according to the article, to switch to driving Amazon delivery trucks, as many of these restaurants will not be reopening. Certainly, that gives our viewers and listeners food for thought. But I know, Saudia, you have a different perspective to share, so enlighten us, please.
Well, this perspective comes from an article by the Washington Examiner, and it was titled, "Every Day of World War II Was Worse Than Coronavirus Pandemic." And what they acknowledged was that the global coronavirus pandemic is an obvious crisis. And it said nation states have closed their borders and heavily restricted their normal intercourse of civil society. In America alone, it states, millions of people could lose their jobs. Thousands, perhaps tens of thousands, are likely to die by the time the virus clears or a vaccine is approved for release. But our history begs us to keep perspective. Every day of World War II, it was worse than this. This is what it says now, okay? On August 14th, 1945, Japan effectively surrendered, and there was obvious elation, but the nation would still have to heal its wounds. Yes, the United States came out of the war as the unparalleled global economic superpower, but in the course of this, we lost over 470,000 Americans to win just that war, with more than 650,000 others wounded. So considering the US population in 1939 and applying that the killed rate to 2020, the figures would add up to more than 1 million dead today. And that's a lot of mourning of families, isn't it, Alicia, and friends? It's a lot of mourning there. So to go on, the article further goes into many of the air, land, and sea battles which made that victory possible were ferociously brutal in their own right, including for civilians. The D-Day landings took 4,400 lives from Allied troops on their opening day, with thousands more lost in action as the Allies broke out of Normandy, then pushed across France and then Germany. And, a similar horror was applied to the battles of the Pacific Theater. It states that about 3,000 Americans died at Guam, including a young Ernest Kernan. And curious. I want to know who Ernest Kernan was because they didn't really further the information. Well, he was a soldier where they didn't have his date of birth or his date of death, but they did record that he received the Purple Heart. Now, I'm not sure if you can get more information on this young man, but just to know that there are probably many, many more who they don't really have a serious record on. But this man, this soldier did receive the Purple Heart. And it says the article goes on to further state that less than a year later at Okinawa, the U.S. would lose 14,000 people. One battle endured a 75% casualty rate during the operation to take that island. The number will surely rise, but for now, the coronavirus death toll is well below the number of people lost to the flu each year. And I'm going to tell you, Alicia, I didn't like hearing that because they were leading with that in the beginning, and that's something that I just really, it bothered me. But when you think about it, you understand that is a fact, that those are factual, that those factual numbers there. The Centers for Disease and Prevention say on average since 2010, 12,000 to 61,000 people die from the flu annually. Of course, we should be taking action to suppress the spread of the coronavirus. And yes, the most analysts suspect we will eventually lose more people to the coronavirus than to the flu. But we will get through this. We will prevail.
Yeah.
We are highly unlikely to face World War II. And this is what this article is stating. We are highly unlikely to face World War II casualty rates. The coronavirus does not pose a threat to our very existence as a nation. Staying indoors is tedious for most of us and economically painful for many workers, but we will prevail. Keep the faith. Yeah.
Interesting perspective.
Very.
And of course, we're bringing you both sides of the information because it's something you need to look at the big picture and what lessons can you learn that you need to apply.
Absolutely.
Exactly. The Washington Examiner also shared another article, and that was titled 6 Wars or One Battle, 2 Ways to Look at Coronavirus Deaths. They pointed to a U.S. Today headline, which was just a few days ago, so the number has increased even higher. But it said that on Monday, April 6th, it offered what appeared to be a very alarming observation. 10,000 dead of coronavirus in USA, more fatalities than 6 wars combined. And although that seems bad, that sounds bad.
Yeah.
Since this number exceeds the killed in action rates of the 6 wars they mentioned, it doesn't come close to the total deaths that resulted from those wars.
Right.
So, exactly. And also the 6 wars were not representative of the casualty counts more often seen in American history. And they gave some examples. For example, in just one battle that was underway 75 years ago in Okinawa, more than 12,000 Americans were killed in action. A public health context also matters here. Government figures suggest that America suffers nearly 650,000 annual deaths to heart disease. As you were saying, these are the numbers and facts. Nearly 90,000 annual deaths due to alcoholism.
Wow.
65,000 due to drug overdoses. More than 30,000 in vehicle accidents. And generally more than 35,000 annual deaths to flu. So what the U.S. coronavirus death toll is likely to rival these and would be worse if we were not taking aggressive countermeasures. We must keep these casualties in the context of these other concerns. So yes, indeed, it's a terrible crisis, but sometimes, the information we're given and some of the spins in the media are somewhat misleading to suggest that it's worse than multiple wars. And this is my conclusion on the matter. The coronavirus threat is a global issue in the U.S. We know that. Global issue, period. With the worst case potential to cost the death of millions. As that doctor was saying, 2.2 million are the estimates. But to each family that experienced a loss, you cannot tell me that this isn't a serious issue and of great concern. whether or not you feel it's comparable to World War II or any other tragedies, viruses, pandemics.
Mm-hmm.
As much as some want to point to the government and leaders to take action, and indeed there are certain things within their, influence and powers that they must execute for the well-being of our citizens, individually we bear responsibility. A responsibility to value the precious gift of life that we are giving, including the lives of our loved ones and those in our community, and to take as much precaution as necessary. I think here you cannot err too much against caution, but you definitely cannot do enough. And that can result in deaths. So again, my theme is gratefulness. No day, moment, or second is promised, never was. So although life may not be ideal right now or the way we would like it to be, there's still a great deal for us to be thankful for. A great deal of hope also for us to hold on to. There's going to be a lot of pivots and changes, but there's a lot that we can be grateful and hopeful for looking towards the future. And we need to really be in this together.
Yes.
Really looking out for one another and not just our four walls. We need to be on a heightened sense of care and love and advocacy and safety. What are you doing, every time you go out the house? And that's why I think, not only the stay-at-home orders, but the other mandates are so important. I mean, if you're looking for a way to do something, you can always, tiptoe around the law or, step on the final, draw a line in the sand and, well, I sort of am guilty, but I'm not. Like I hear of people that are going to those hotels or people's houses to get their hair and nails done because this is a luxury you just can't give up. But when you look at the risk and the fact that maybe you are healthy, you could catch something and give it to someone that you're going around that ends in their death, it's not worth it. Love yourself, first of all, more than that, but love your family more than that. Love your community more than that you're going to take every precaution necessary to preserve not only your life, but the lives of those around you. And Sadia, I know you have some thoughts, so I want to hear what your conclusion of the matter is.
Well, Alicia, I'm going to take it just a step further. Every time you walk out your door, there is a risk for you catching it. You don't even have to be around someone. You could have walked to your mailbox, picked up your mail, came back in, and not did your due diligence with how we have to care for going to the mailbox and picking up our mail. You could have picked up the coronavirus right then and there, brought it into your home, and affected everyone in your home. So even outside of those individuals who are, I'm going to use the word selfish, because I feel like you're selfish when you go out and you hang in groups, not taking necessary precautions. You're selfish to others who are going to come in contact with you. For instance, our first responders. I'm a retired law enforcement officer. I was a first responder. Every day you risk your lives. I'm not talking about going out your home is a risk. But when you're a first responder, you're taking it a step further. Yes. Because you're out there putting your life on the line for the lives of others. So when we have individuals who know what's happening, and if you can de-escalate these numbers just by a little bit, just by doing your due diligence, staying in your homes, so that we can protect not only yourself, but your loved ones, and also give the first responders a fighting chance. I spoke to some first responders in New York, okay? And they're going through hell right now. Hell. A majority of their police department is sick.
Yes.
And some of them still have to work. Amen. So it just depends on how sick you are. Same thing with our doctors and our nurses who are first responders. They are still coming into work and they have COVID-19.
Right.
They can't stop. Why? Because we don't have enough medical personnel or law enforcement officers to really battle this situation. The whole medical facility, all of our police officers, they can't stay at home in their beds resting.
No.
So while we're selfishly trying to get our hair done, our nails done, we are selfishly trying to hang out. I just want to hang out with my friend. You can't tell me what to do, and I'm going to have this party, and it was my birthday, and I want to celebrate.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
I'm going to have folks over at my house for a dinner, and
Don't do it.
While we are at that selfish level, let's take a minute to stop and think about the risk that we're putting more than one person in. Exactly. There are asymptomatic carriers. Do you know what asymptomatic means? Asymptomatic means not showing any signs at all.
None.
Asymptomatic carriers. So every time a law enforcement officer has to pull your vehicle over when you should have been at home because you stopped and you were doing something erratic during this time, you put your life at risk, that officer's life at risk, that officer's family's life at risk, your family's life at risk. Your community, you don't know what you're getting into because you're not taking the time to think and take that time and that due diligence to say, okay, I'm limited right now. I cannot do the things that I would normally do. It's messed up. It is for all of us. But this is the time that I have to step back and I have to let life as it is, be that as it may. I have to do my due diligence for myself and my family and my community.
Amen.
Step up. Take responsibility. This is the time for all of us. All of us have a responsibility and a part to play. Okay?
Amen.
We all do. All of us. It doesn't just affect one. I heard someone say, oh, it doesn't, African Americans are not getting it. Yeah, well, this race is not getting I've heard so many conspiracy theories. I'm just up to my head with conspiracy theories. And I'm here to tell you that for those of you African Americans who don't feel like you can get it, you are susceptible to COVID-19 as well. My sister is a doctor. Her husband is a doctor. You're endangering their lives. My father works in the VA hospital. My son works in the VA hospital. They're essential personnel. You're endangering their lives. I have family members who are law enforcement officers. You're endangering their lives. Every time you decide that you want to selfishly step outside of yourself and just do the things that you would normally do on a normal given day, these are not normal times. Okay? Take responsibility. Take responsibility. I have people, loved ones that I know that are infected with this disease, and I do not know if they're going to make it out. Stop being selfish and do your due diligence for not only yourself, but for your family and your communities. Alicia, that's...
Amen. I think those are the final words. Those are the final words. And, if you listen to the last episode on Monday and you heard those two examples from the first responders, look at the April 6th Monday episode. That said it all. Now you're hearing this story personally, or these stories rather. This is nothing to play with. There's no joke about this. We shared, I think, on the Entrepreneurs Lounge Instagram page and Facebook page, we shared that x-ray. So again, go back to Monday's show, because 8 hours, when you said asymptomatic, 8 hours, the man was on the bed texting on his cell phone, perfectly healthy.
Right.
Could never tell. And if it wasn't for that doctor, Dr. Saeed in New York, if it wasn't for him just looking at those two x-rays and being the expert he is, he would have never caught it. He wouldn't have intubated him until maybe he came back, and then it would have been too late. Very serious. So what we're going to ask you to do is make sure you stay tuned to our Facebook pages, Generational Survivors, as well as the Entrepreneurs Lounge radio show for all updates, resources, and upcoming events. And soon we will be announcing the first responders that we will bring to you our future episodes. on society survivors. So until next time, continue to pray for you, continue to pray for your loved ones, and love one another.
Amen.
We kept saying Saudia's words are planning, prayer, not panicking, planning and prayer and preparation. Yes. So continue to do that for our society. And again, love one another. Until next time, bye-bye for now.